And we are back. Wow. So I'm gonna do two videos today or this week because I feel like the Formula One needs a whole separate one. I think if you're interested in watching Formula One, we can have that whole thing, and then this is like my normal weekly roundup, the stuff I want to put in this. We're gonna do here. And we're going to break down the Formula One completely in the other video. So this one's going to be a good old-fashioned roundup of, there's a lot that went on last week as well outside of the Formula One. But because obviously, as I'm sure you've heard, quite a bit went down. So I'm sure my thoughts condensed into one separate video will be better, I think, for this particular occasion. So outside of that, last week, I did say, so this is another example of just, hopefully I get things right sometimes. The NBA Finals, only had 2 games last week. I thought there'd be more. I thought we'd get 3 games, but there's only 2 games. Game 4 and Game 5. Now, Phoenix Suns were up 2-1 before. So they were doing pretty well, as you'd expect after 3 games, because Phoenix Suns are the higher ranked team, because they were number 1 in their conference. So they'll get 4 of the 7 games at home, which is obviously a massive advantage, especially the way Phoenix play at home. So after 3 games, it goes 2 at home for the top ranked team, and then 2 at home for the other team, and then it goes original top ranked team away and home. So like kind of after 4 games, you play 2 games at home each, but the final 3 you're going to get 2 of the 3 at home. So the advantage doesn't unwind until those final 3 games. But ideally you have to, your worst case, get out of those first 4 games 2-2 if you can, especially if you're the top seed. If you're the top seed, you've got it quite easy. If you're the bottom seed, if you can get out of it 2-2, I don't know, you can try and win 2 games away, but it's so hard, especially in the playoffs. So, like I was saying, 2-1 up Phoenix Suns. Game 4 was going to be the critical one. That was going to be the game where, like I said, because it's 2 games each at home, if you go down 3-1, like Milwaukee could have been, you're not going to win you're not going to win the majority of games away from home now. So you had to win Game 4 at home, and Superman Giannis and the boys and the Bucks got it done. I feel like so Game 4 and Game 5, Phoenix had big leads in both of them, and the Bucks came back. 2 legendary plays. So Game 4 was made famous by Giannis's block. It's not quite, people are kind of trying to compare it to LeBron's block in the 2016 finals. It's not quite as dramatic as that, and it obviously wasn't a Game 7, but it was still pretty insane. Like last minute block, I think it was DeAndre Ayton, just like a layup, little pop the ball in. Giannis went up, swatted the ball away, and then they got Game 4. So that ended up being 2-2, as you'd expect. Game 5 in Phoenix. Phoenix were up 16 points at one point in the first quarter. Came storming back. And then Giannis and the boys again managed to... So Phoenix were up. They ended up losing that lead. Then they were back up again, trying to chase down the win. Devin Booker had it wasn't easy. He had the ball driving to the basket, had a little pull-up jumper. He was about to pull up and take the jumper, gets stripped by Holiday. They run up the other end. Holiday alley-oops Giannis, dunks all over Chris Paul. Everyone goes nuts. Bucks win 3-2. That was back-to-back plays, back-to-back games with just insane game-ending sequences. And now Phoenix are down 3-2. Granted, Game 6 is at Milwaukee, Game 7 is at Phoenix. You're down 3-2 and you're going away. That's nightmare scenario. Well, for anyone, of course. So now Phoenix have to go all out to try and win Game 6 in Milwaukee tonight. And now, if they can do that, then they're back. Then the momentum swings all the way back. So we've gone from Game 4 being critical. Now Game 6 is obviously it's win or go home for Phoenix Suns. If the Phoenix Suns do win, they've then got a home game in Game 7 in the NBA Finals. we kind of thought he would go this far. I mean, the Phoenix Suns probably were looking the better team for sure, but now that Giannis has managed to lead his team to 2 straight wins, just taking over. I mean, all the kind of the criticism he got about his free throws and not taking games over. These 2 games he's taken them over, like, he's really come up and dominated and put them on the brink of winning the title. So I'm excited. This Game 6 is going to be outstanding. I'm really looking forward to that. So that's coming up, and then Game 7, obviously, before we speak again next week. So gonna break down Game 6 and Game 7 for you next week, but it's definitely worth, if you can, record it, watch it next day. It's going to be epic. The Tour de France also finished as we kind of, it was kind of done for a while. I think the last time we spoke, that was the kind of deciding week. It was, Tadej Pogačar kind of put his rivals to the sword in a few stages. One stage 17 breakaway on the mountains, and now it was kind of processional throughout for most of it, and his rivals were didn't really have much in them. So he's now gone back to back, and he's won the mountains, the young driver, and the general. So the general was the yellow jersey, the overall winner, the one everyone knows about. And what I do like about Tour de France and a lot of tours is that you've got different jerseys for different sort of parts of the race. So obviously you've got sprint races, which is for the quick guys, which is Mark Cavendish, we'll get onto him in a minute. And you've got the mountain stage for the climbers. So the Tour de France attracts lots of different types of riders. You've got people who can kind of do a bit of everything, like Pogačar and like some other greats. You've got some mountain climbers who are kind of the thinner guys or smaller guys who can get up mountains quickly. And you've got the sprinters who are slightly bigger, Mark Cavendish and those kind of people. And they win the flat stages, the really quick ones, really sprint finishes. So Tour de France kind of encompasses quite a few different types. And the jerseys available are obviously the mountain stages, the polka dot one. So the overall king of the mountain, as they call it, wins that. Pogačar won that. The young rider award is the best. So the best finisher under the age of 26, he won that as well. And obviously the general classification, he won that. So he's won all 3 back to back. I mean, no one's really won the one that's impressive is the mountain stage, the king of the mountains and the general. So the only person that's done that recently was Chris Froome, the great Chris Froome in 2015. So it's not normal. People don't normally win. They certainly don't win the green and the overall. But the King of the Mountains is kind of like a good one to get. It kind of does prove, obviously, I guess the mountain is the harder of the 2 types between mountains and sprint. So extraordinarily impressive that he's managed to win both back to back. Kind of unusual, the fact he's managed to do that. Also extremely impressive is Mark Cavendish has now tied Eddie Merckx's record for most stage wins at the Tour de France. They're both on 34. Nobody thought, I mean, he only got drafted in last minute to replace someone who got injured. So he wasn't even supposed to be at the Tour this year. Had so many injuries, so many heartbreaks professionally, so many illnesses. And the fact he came back, won so many stages, now he's the all-time leader, joint with a 5-time champion. So Cavendish has won 2 points, green jersey. So 2 of the sprint jerseys at the Tour de France, ironically 10 years ago, so 2011 and this year. And the fact now he's tied with a great is, and it's a massive story. I don't know if it's a bigger story. I mean, within the cyclists, I don't know the cycling communities, but I'd imagine certainly for the casual, it will get as much, if not more, news. Certainly in Britain, anyway, because 34. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of stages. It's a lot of stages to win. Certainly without winning the actual Tour de France. Like I said before, all the guys around him have won multiple. I mean, the two around him won 5 each. The 2 of the greatest cyclists of all time. So the fact he's up there is an incredible comeback, and I guess we'll see. I assume he's going to keep coming back until he just gets one more stage, because you'd want to be the all-time leader. You wouldn't want to just quit at tied first. So 2 biggest stories. Young superstar Tadej Pogačar is only 22 years old. He's got a long way to go still. A long ways in terms of a lot more stages to win, a lot more Tour de France to win. Obviously with the Olympics, I don't think it's going to be in the Olympics, which is starting this week. But going forward, it's going to be very exciting to watch him, and I'm going to probably pay more attention, seeing as he's knocking around and doing his thing. The UFC was on in the weekend. It's a smaller card. Miesha Tate was back. She won, former champ. She's did look good. I guess we'll see. She wants to come back and win the belt, so I guess we'll see how she looks in her next fight. The woman she fought today or on the weekend retired, so it's hard to. She had a record, I think it's 9-8, so it's tough to kind of really compare. Speaking of tough to compare records, Islam Makhachev, lightweight, he's 20-1. So he's only 29 years old. He's 20-1 in mixed martial arts. He did lose in the UFC. He's sort of Khabib's understudy, if you like. He's kind of the Khabib number 2. Khabib's literally his coach. And his kind of style is similar to Khabib in terms of the style, the wrestling Sambo style, smothering and just overwhelming guys. He's not fought anyone good. He's seen as like the scariest guy, but he's not fought anyone high ranked or anyone ranked. I don't think even the guy who fought Moises was even ranked. So Makhachev is now ranked number 9, and the only guys ahead of him are the top guys. RDA, McGregor, Chandler, obviously Poirier's right at the top, Ferguson, Benil Dariush, Dan Hooker, like these guys, he's got to fight one of those, and then we'll see how good he is. So at the minute, there's a lot, and rightly so, there's a lot of hype around him, and he does look very impressive against the people he's fought so far. But I'm definitely personally going to hold off for sure on crowning him until he fights someone good, and he could well blow them all away, and we could have a Khabib version 2 on our hands. And the guys around him, so Daniel Cormier and Khabib and some of the other guys, are saying he could be that. So we could have a Khabib version 2, which for the spectacle is not going to be the most exciting thing you've ever seen. But if he's dominant, I think you've got to accept that, and kind of, especially if he is what they think he is, it's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be exciting to see who can solve the puzzle, see who can get there and can do any sort of damage to him. So far, that's not actually happened at all. So we shall see. Watch this space. The Open Championship was. I loved the Open mainly because of the timing. Because it's on at a reasonable time. It finished up at like 6 or 7 o'clock on Sunday, and they're on during the day, and it wraps up nice and early. You're not there till 1 a.m. on American time. The actual tournament itself was great. The pre-tournament favourites, round 1 to 3 is always just jostling for position. Everyone sort of goes through their rounds and has a good round, has an average round. You get a lot of people who kind of just drift, and then the final round is when all the movement happens, and you get people like Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, those guys right up there in the top 6, top 8. Brooks Koepka once again, final day 65. He was tied 6th. Dustin Johnson was pretty much nowhere all tournament, to be fair. Like, he wasn't threatening at any point. He ended up tied 8th. My boy Scotty Scheffler was hanging around. He ended up around the same position. Rory McIlroy is just not on it. He hasn't been on it all year. I don't know when he's going to get back on it, but he ended up even par, 15 shots off the lead in the end. Collin Morikawa has now got 2 major championships in 8 starts, which is borderline impossible. I mean, your first 8 major championships, normally you just go around, you try and make the cut, try and do your thing. Collin Morikawa's now won 2 majors out of that, and he's the only one other than Tiger Woods to win the US PGA and the Open before the age of 26. So we've got, I mean, for sure, he's one of my favourite players, for sure, one of my favourite current active players, mainly because his temperament, his post-tournament speech did give a very good indication of how good a person he is, how much of a role model he is. So I think for sure he's one to look forward to for the future, well, the current and the future for sure. And now Oosthuizen, who had a chance, he was leading through 3 rounds. Jordan Spieth was very close, missed a few little putts there. So, I mean, going forward, I mean, it's been an interest. All the majors have kind of like come and gone very quickly. All 4 majors are now done. Everyone's had their fun, and now we're going to get back into the FedEx Cup playoffs and some of the other tournaments. Morikawa's been extremely impressive. John Rahm ended up being, tied 3rd with Oosthuizen. So they all shot 4 under on the final day. Oosthuizen was over par. I mean, that's 2 in a row now, 2nd place. So Oosthuizen's come up very close. Patrick Cantlay, so my boy Cantlay, Reed, and Mickelson all missed the cut. So they were all miles away. Phil Mickelson shot 10 over 80 on the first day, so he was never going to make the cut from there. So going forward, Collin Morikawa's looking excellent. John Rahm is still looking excellent. Jordan Spieth's back, and Rory McIlroy isn't. To be fair, he's really struggling. So we shall see going into next year. We'll see who kind of arranges the fall. I mean, Dustin Johnson is a strange one. He's really just sort of drifted along and not done a whole lot this year. He's kind of just drifted along, been very steady. I guess we'll see. We'll see how he develops. Yeah. The last bit I wanted to talk about was something I've been sitting on for a little while. I mentioned previously about the athletics. Obviously, Olympics is coming up this Friday, incredibly, even though they're worried about the COVID cases over there in Japan. There's going to be no crowds. Everyone's flying over there, going to be in quarantine and whatnot. World record has been broken in the last month, 2 months. The men's and the women's 400 meter hurdles. So you'll see, both of those and the men's shot put, it's like a 30-year-old record the American broke. That's not too, in terms of interest going into the Olympic Games, the two extremely close events are going to be the men's and the women's 400 meter hurdles. Karsten Warholm against Rye Benjamin. And in the women's, it's Dalila Muhammad, who was the previous world record holder, and Sydney McLaughlin. So they've both broken the world record in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of interest, especially with those two races. It's going to be probably get another world record broken in the final. So there's a lot of, watch those two races for sure. 200 meters, a woman called Gabby Thomas. She is now the second fastest woman over 200 meters behind Florence Griffith-Joyner. She ran 21.6, which is, I mean, given the world record's 21.3 and no one's got anywhere near that, for obvious reasons. We don't need to go into how Florence Griffith-Joyner broke those world records, but so she's the second fastest woman of all time. There's a lot of interesting new people that have come onto the scene. Sharika Jackson is running 1, 2 and 400 meters, and she's managed to go really low in all three of those. So she's going to be close. Dean Asher-Smith, British girl, she's running very well. The 100's interesting because Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price is now the second fastest woman of all time at 34. Again, it's sort of like how are we running this quick this late. But the big news, I guess, in the 100 metres, you might have heard Sha'Carri Richardson, who I mentioned a long time ago, second fastest woman in the world this year. She got banned for cannabis. So she failed a drugs test at some point, and because it was just before the Olympic Games, she got banned for a month, and that covered right up until I think midway through the Olympic Games, and she couldn't appeal it, and that's it. So as far as being banned for cannabis, it's not really a performance as a drug, but it's a drug that you're not allowed to take. So by the letter of the law, you're just not allowed to take it. It's not a big issue, but you're just not allowed to take it. So I don't really, there isn't really much argument. She shouldn't be in or out of competition. It's just stupid at this point for an elite athlete to be, both to be suspended and then knowing that that's the rule, still do it anyway. But we move. I guess she'll be back at some point in the future. Touching on the people who are banned, there are 4 banned champions from this event. So Christian Coleman, the 100 fastest, the world champion from 2019 in the 100 meters, probably the gold medal favorite, he got banned for 2 years for a whereabouts failure. So if you fail 3 drugs tests, or if you fail to show up for 3 drugs tests in a rolling period, you get banned, because obviously if you're not showing up to drugs tests, what are you doing? His case was a little bit more harsh, because I think 2 of them were literally not his fault, and the third one, the guy went to the wrong place. But still, you miss 3, it's tough to try and back you. Sha'Carri Richardson, like I already mentioned, the women's 400 meter flat world champion, she got banned for another whereabouts one, the same as Christian Coleman. And the really interesting one was the Olympic champion, the 100 meter hurdles, the women, Brianna McNeil. She failed 3 whereabouts tests in 2017. She had her thing there. She then got banned again for tampering with the drug control forms. So at this, you kind of look at it, you think, all right, okay, you've had your whereabouts failure, fine, and now you're also getting banned for tampering with the form. So add her to the list of the people that are banned from the Olympic Games. That's an interesting side note, because I feel like I've noticed a lot more people, I mean, obviously a lot more high-level Olympic favourites are getting banned from the Olympic Games for drugs offences. It's sort of the undercurrent thing. If anyone's seen Icarus, it's certainly big in my mind when we talk about athletics or competition in general. All the drug testing issues that are going on for sure that nobody can prove. It's hard to know, but I just found those particular ones interesting. And there's a few other ones. The women's triple jump world record could and should go as well. And there's a few other ones. The men's javelin, Johannes Vetter, German, he's throwing right. I mean, the world record's 98 meters, and nobody gets close for a few different reasons. So he's knocking on the door. So I could go through all the sports. It would just take forever, to be fair. But there's a lot of interesting sort of undercurrents, a lot of interesting stories going around in terms of world records and tightly contested battles for the Olympic medals. So I'm pretty excited. I mean, to be honest, I'm probably equally or if not more excited for the swimming, because I do personally like the swimming at the Olympic Games. That always seems to be more. I could probably because you can't see them as well. Maybe that's just this. It's just my own brain. That's how I kind of see it. But I kind of like how there's so many different events, and it's hard to know exactly who's winning, and it seems a lot harder. So that's my kind of like amateur perception of the Olympic swimming versus the Olympic athletics. But because I've been kind of keeping an eye on, like I said, all these world records, all these people getting banned. The Olympic Games, the athletics part of it, even though there's not going to be any crowds, which is going to be very weird, because again, like we've seen in the NBA, Tour de France, golf, and UFC, when you got crowds back, there's literally nothing like it. When you have the crowds back, it's absolutely insane. So the difference is night and day. So I'm very much looking forward to the Olympic Games, which is going to be going on, I think, for a month at least. So very, very exciting. So yeah, that will wrap it up for the week. Obviously, Formula One coming soon. You're going to get a comprehensive breakdown. Very comprehensive, because I feel like there's so much to cover, but we're going to cover it all, don't you worry. So Formula One coming soon. Appreciate jumping on this one. And I'll be back again very soon. This week, obviously, today, with the Formula One. And then next week for, well, I guess how the NBA finals finished. And then the Olympic Games, the little interest Olympic Games. So appreciate the love again. See you next week.